She stood frozen in the garden, her hand still on the gate. The party sounds drifted from the backyard, laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. But all she could hear was her daughter-in-law's voice, clear and cold. Why is she still alive? And then her son's laugh. Not a shocked gasp, not a defense, just a quiet chuckle of agreement. That's the moment Esther Blackwell's world shattered. I'm an estate planning attorney in Seattle, Washington. I've practiced law for 22 years, helping people protect their assets and plan for the future. I've seen family dysfunction in every form imaginable, but Esther's case still haunts me. Not because of the legal complexity, because of what it revealed about the people she trusted most. Let me tell you how this happened. Esther Blackwell was 73 years old when she walked into my office. She was impeccably dressed, her posture straight, her expression composed. But I could see the tremor in her hands as she gripped her purse. "I need to change my estate plan," she said. Her voice was steady, immediately. "What's prompted this decision?" I asked. She told me about the party, about standing outside her son's house, about to surprise them with her early arrival, about hearing her daughter-in-law Susan ask that question. Why is she still alive? "What did your son say?" I asked. He laughed. David just laughed, like it was a joke, like my continued existence was an inconvenience they were all tolerating. Esther's voice didn't break. She didn't cry, but I could see the devastation in her eyes. "I didn't go inside," she continued. "I turned around, got in my car, and drove home. And I realized something. I'm not their mother. I'm not their family. I'm their inheritance. I'm a bank account they're waiting to access." This wasn't the first time Esther had felt dismissed by her family, but it was the moment everything crystallized. Let me back up and give you context about Esther's life and family situation. Esther had been widowed 12 years earlier when her husband Harold died of a heart attack. They'd had a good marriage. Harold had been a successful engineer. They'd lived modestly, saved aggressively, and built substantial wealth. When Harold died, he left everything to Esther. About $1.8 million in total. The house they'd owned for 30 years paid off completely. Retirement accounts, investment portfolios, life insurance. Esther had one child, David. She'd raised him as a loving mother. She'd helped pay for his college. She'd supported his career choices. She'd welcomed his wife Susan into the family, even though Susan had never been particularly warm to her. David and Susan had 2 children, Chloe, who was 15, and Michael, who was 12. After Harold died, David had immediately started positioning himself as Esther's protector and financial advisor. "Mom, you shouldn't be making these decisions alone," he'd said. "Let me help you manage things." Esther, still grieving, had agreed. That's where the problems started. David convinced Esther to add him as co-signer on all her bank accounts. "Just in case something happens to you, Mom, so I can help pay your bills." David convinced Esther to name him as her durable power of attorney for both financial and healthcare decisions. "So if you get sick, I can make sure you're taken care of." David convinced Esther to name him as executor of her will. "You need someone responsible to handle your estate." Esther had agreed to all of it. Why wouldn't she? David was her son. She trusted him. Over the years, Esther had been financially generous with David and Susan. She'd given them $40,000 for the down payment on their house. She'd bought them a new car when theirs broke down. She'd paid for the grandchildren's summer camps and private school tuition. Every time David asked for help, Esther gave it. Because that's what mothers do, right? They help their children. But something had been changing lately. David and Susan's requests for money had become more frequent, more demanding, less appreciative. 6 months before the garden party incident, David had asked Esther for $50,000 to remodel their kitchen. It's an investment in the house value, he'd said. And honestly, Mom, you're not spending your money on anything. You're just sitting on it. Might as well help us improve our home. Esther had refused. For the first time in her life, she'd said no to her son. David, I need to preserve my savings. Healthcare gets expensive as you age. I might need long-term care eventually. I can't just give away $50,000 for a kitchen remodel. David had been angry. Not disappointed. Angry. After everything we've done for you, we check on you. We include you in family events. We bring the kids to visit. And you can't help us with one thing? Susan had been even more direct. You're being selfish. You have almost $2 million. What are you saving it for? You can't take it with you. That conversation had planted the first seed of doubt in Esther's mind. The suggestion that she was selfish for wanting to preserve her own financial security. The implication that she owed them money because they occasionally invited her to family gatherings. Then came the party, and that overheard question. Why is she still alive? Now Esther sat in my office, ready to take action. I want David removed from everything, she said. My bank accounts, my power of attorney, my will, everything. Can you help me do that? Absolutely, but we need to move carefully and quickly. If David has access to your accounts right now, we need to protect your assets immediately. How do we do that? I pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. First, we need to understand exactly what legal authority David currently has. You mentioned he's co-signer on your accounts and has power of attorney. Is he named in your will as executor? Yes, and as the sole beneficiary, along with the grandchildren. What about a trust? Do you have one? No, Harold and I always meant to set one up, but we never got around to it. Okay, here's what we're dealing with. As co-signer on your accounts, David has access to withdraw money right now. As your power of attorney, he has legal authority to make financial and healthcare decisions on your behalf if you're incapacitated. As executor, he'll control your estate after you die. That's a lot of power. I understand that now. I was stupid to give him so much control. You weren't stupid. You trusted your son. That's natural. But now we need to undo that trust from a legal perspective. I outlined a strategy for Esther. It would require moving quickly and quietly. We couldn't alert David to what we were doing until all the pieces were in place. Why can't we just tell him? Esther asked. Because if David knows you're removing his access, he could drain your bank accounts before we can stop him. Legally, as co-signer, he has the right to withdraw funds. We need to close those accounts and open new ones before he knows what's happening. Esther looked shocked. You think my son would steal from me? I don't know, but I'm not willing to risk it. Are you? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. No, I'm not. We scheduled an action plan for the following day. Esther would come to my office first thing in the morning. We'd prepare all the necessary documents. Then, we'd execute everything in sequence before David had any idea what was happening. That night, Esther told me later, she barely slept. She kept replaying that moment in the garden. Her daughter-in-law's casual cruelty. Her son's complicit laughter. Why is she still alive? The next morning, Esther arrived at my office at 8 o'clock sharp. She'd brought all her financial documents, bank statements, investment accounts, insurance policies, deeds, her existing will and power of attorney documents. We spent 2 hours reviewing everything, and what I discovered made me even more concerned about David's access to Esther's finances. Esther had approximately $1.8 million in assets, but her checking account, which David had access to as co-signer, had over $200,000 in it. Why do you keep so much in checking? I asked. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. That's just where the money goes when my investment dividends and Social Security come in. Esther, this is a problem. David could legally withdraw all of this money today if he wanted to. We need to move it immediately. We called her bank. I explained that we needed to close the existing accounts and open new ones in Esther's name only. The bank manager was hesitant. If there's a cosigner on the account, they need to consent to closing it, he said. The cosigner is not an owner, I explained. He's just a cosigner for convenience. Mrs. Blackwell, as the primary account holder, has the right to close her own accounts. After some back and forth and a consultation with the bank's legal department, they agreed. We went to the bank that afternoon. Esther closed both her checking and savings accounts. We immediately opened new accounts in her name only. The balances were transferred. By the end of the day, David no longer had access to a single dollar of his mother's money. How long before he notices? Esther asked. Depends on whether he monitors your accounts. Could be days, could be weeks. Next, we tackled the power of attorney situation. This was simpler from a legal standpoint, but more emotionally difficult for Esther. I drafted a formal revocation of power of attorney. This document, once signed and filed, would immediately terminate David's legal authority to act on Esther's behalf. Once you sign this, I explained, David can't make financial or medical decisions for you anymore. Even if you're unconscious in a hospital, he has no legal standing. Who will make those decisions then? We need to designate someone else. Do you have anyone you trust? A friend? Another family member? Esther thought for a moment. My friend Margaret. We've been friends for 40 years. She's sensible and kind. Would she be appropriate? Perfect. We'll name her as your new agent under a new power of attorney. I contacted Margaret by phone. She was shocked by what Esther had overheard, but completely willing to serve as her power of attorney agent. We prepared new power of attorney documents naming Margaret. Esther signed them. The old power of attorney was formally revoked. David's legal authority over his mother's life was gone. Then came the will. This was emotionally the hardest part for Esther. Her existing will left everything to David, with a provision that if David predeceased her, the estate would go to her grandchildren, Chloe and Michael. Do you want to leave anything to your grandchildren? I asked. Esther's face was pained. I love them, but they're children. They repeat what their parents say. They've been taught to see me as a bank account too. Maybe when they're older and independent, they'll understand. But right now, no. I don't want to reward David and Susan's behavior by leaving money to children they control. So who do you want to inherit your estate? There's a women's shelter in Seattle I've supported for years, the Madison House. They help women escape domestic violence. Could I leave my estate to them? Absolutely. That's your right. Your estate, your choice. We drafted a completely new will. The Madison House was named as the primary beneficiary. Esther's friend Margaret was named as executor instead of David. There was one more crucial element: creating a trust. Esther, I strongly recommend we create a revocable living trust, I said. This will protect your assets even more completely than just changing your will. How does that work? You'll transfer ownership of your major assets, your house, your investment accounts, into the trust. You'll be the trustee while you're alive and competent, so you maintain complete control. But when you die, the assets pass directly to your chosen beneficiaries without going through probate. David can't challenge it as easily. But won't creating a trust alert David that something's changed? Not if we're strategic. We'll transfer the assets quietly. The trust documents aren't public record. By the time David realizes what's happened, it'll be too late for him to interfere. We spent another 3 hours that day setting up Esther's revocable living trust. We named a professional trustee from a local trust company to serve as successor trustee when Esther died or became incapacitated. This meant, even if David tried to challenge things legally, he'd be dealing with experienced professionals, not just his elderly mother. The Madison House was named as the beneficiary of the trust. Everything Esther owned would eventually go to helping women in crisis. Over the next 2 weeks, we quietly transferred Esther's assets into the trust. The house was deeded into the trust's name. Investment accounts were retitled. Insurance beneficiaries were changed. David had no idea any of this was happening. Finally, we did one more thing. We changed all the locks on Esther's house. "Does David have keys to your home?" I asked. "Yes. He insisted I give him a copy years ago, in case of emergency." "Those keys won't work anymore after today." A locksmith came and replaced every lock. New keys. Fresh start. 3 weeks after our first meeting, Esther's legal and financial transformation was complete. David had zero access, zero authority, zero inheritance. And he still didn't know. "How are you feeling?" I asked Esther during our final meeting to review everything we'd done. Terrified, relieved, guilty, angry, all at once. "That's normal. You've just taken away your son's expectations. There will be consequences." "I know. Part of me wants to just explain everything to him, to tell him why I did this." "I strongly advise against that. Not yet. Let the legal changes settle first. Make sure everything's in place and can't be easily undone." "When will he find out?" "Probably soon. When his bank card doesn't work on your old account, or when he tries to use his power of attorney and discovers it's been revoked." "What will he do?" "I don't know. But whatever he does, you'll be protected, legally and financially." Esther nodded. "Thank you for believing me, for not making me feel crazy for doing this." "You're not crazy. You're protecting yourself from people who see you as an inheritance instead of a person. That's self-preservation, not paranoia." 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Esther. "It started," she said. "David tried to use the bank card linked to my old account. It was declined. He's been calling me non-stop. I haven't answered." "Good. Don't. Not until you're ready." "How long should I wait?" "As long as you need. You don't owe him an explanation on his timeline." The calls continued for days. First from David, then from Susan, then from both of them together. The voicemails started friendly. "Mom, there seems to be a problem with your bank account. Can you call me back?" Then concerned. "Mom, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? Please call." Then angry. "What the hell did you do? Why can't I access your accounts? Call me back now." Esther listened to each voicemail but didn't respond. She was finding strength she didn't know she had. Finally, after a week of ignored calls, David showed up at Esther's house. He tried his key. It didn't work. He rang the doorbell repeatedly. Esther watched through the window but didn't answer. He started yelling, "Mom, I know you're in there. Open the door." "What's going on?" Esther called me. "He's outside my house yelling. What should I do?" "Do you feel unsafe?" I don't know. He's angry. Very angry." "Call the police. Tell them your adult son is on your property refusing to leave." Esther hesitated. Call the police on her own son? But then she remembered. Why is she still alive? She called 911. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Esther watched through her window as 2 officers approached David, who was still standing on her front porch demanding she open the door. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see David's animated gestures, his pointing at the house, his obvious frustration. One of the officers walked to the door and rang the bell. Esther opened it, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Ma'am, are you Esther Blackwell?" "Yes." "This man claims he's your son and says he's concerned about your welfare. He says you've locked him out and won't respond to his calls." "That's correct. I've chosen not to speak with him. This is my home and I'd like him to leave." The officer looked surprised. "Ma'am, is there a reason you're refusing contact with your son? Is there some kind of emergency or situation we should know about?" "No emergency. This is a personal family matter. I simply don't want him on my property. The other officer spoke to David, who became more agitated. Finally, after several minutes of discussion, both officers came back to the door. Ma'am, your son is very worried about you. He's concerned that someone might be taking advantage of you or influencing you. Would you be willing to let us come inside and verify you're okay? Esther understood what they were implying. They thought she might be a vulnerable, elderly person being manipulated or held against her will. Officers, I'm perfectly fine. I'm 73 years old, but I'm of sound mind. I've made some legal and financial changes recently, and my son is upset about them. That's all this is. What kind of changes? I've removed him from my bank accounts and revoked his power of attorney. I've also changed my will. These are my legal rights. The officers exchanged glances. This was clearly not what they'd expected. Ma'am, those are certainly your rights, but your son seems genuinely concerned. Would you be willing to at least speak with him, with us present, just to resolve this situation? Esther thought about it. She didn't want to talk to David, but she also didn't want the police thinking she was being controlled or manipulated. Fine, but I want my attorney on the phone. She called me. I was in a meeting with another client, but immediately stepped out when I heard Esther's voice. The police are here, she said. David showed up at my house. They want me to talk to him with them present. Can you be on the phone? Absolutely. Put me on speaker. Esther invited the officers inside. David tried to follow, but they made him wait on the porch for now. One officer spoke into Esther's phone. Sir, this is Officer Martinez with Seattle PD. Who am I speaking with? This is Michael Chen, Mrs. Blackwell's attorney. I'm her counsel for estate planning and elder law matters. Sir, we're here because Mrs. Blackwell's son is concerned about some sudden changes to her financial and legal documents. He's worried she might be under undue influence. I'd been practicing law long enough to know exactly what was happening. David was trying to paint Esther as an incompetent elderly woman being manipulated by her attorney. It was a common tactic from family members who'd just been cut out of inheritances. Officer, I can assure you that Mrs. Blackwell is completely competent and made all her decisions freely. She came to me several weeks ago to make changes to her estate plan. She's been clear, consistent, and rational throughout the entire process. What prompted these changes? I looked at Esther. She nodded. Mrs. Blackwell overheard her daughter-in-law and son making disparaging comments about her, specifically questioning why she was still alive. She realized they viewed her as a financial resource rather than a family member, and she decided to protect her assets and autonomy. David, still on the porch, could apparently hear this through the open door. He started yelling. That's not what happened. Susan was joking. Mom, you know she didn't mean it. You're destroying our family over a misunderstanding. Officer Martinez went to the door. Sir, you need to calm down. I won't calm down. That lawyer is poisoning my mother against me. He's manipulating her to get her money. Mr. Blackwell, I'm not getting her money, I said clearly through the phone. I'm helping her protect it from people who are planning to inherit it and apparently couldn't wait for her to die. That's not true, Esther finally spoke, her voice steady. David, I heard what Susan said, and I heard you laugh. That wasn't a joke. That was how you really feel. Mom, please. We were stressed about money. Susan said something stupid. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything. It showed me what I really am to you and Susan. An inheritance. A resource. Not your mother. That's not true. Then explain the $50,000 for your kitchen remodel. When I said no, you called me selfish. You said I wasn't spending my money on anything, so I might as well give it to you. That's not how you talk to a person. That's how you talk about an asset you think you're entitled to. David's expression shifted. The desperate concern was replaced by something harder, colder. After everything we've done for you. After Dad died, who helped you? Who made sure you were okay? Who handled all the legal paperwork and financial stuff you couldn't figure out? I've been taking care of you for 12 years. You've been positioning yourself to control my assets for 12 years. There's a difference. The officers could clearly see this was a family dispute, not a case of elder abuse or manipulation. Mrs. Blackwell, Officer Martinez said gently, are you making these decisions of your own free will? Yes. Has anyone threatened you or coerced you? No. Do you want your son on your property? No. Officer Martinez turned to David. Sir, you need to leave. This is your mother's property, and she's asked you to go. You can't be serious. I'm her son. That doesn't give you the right to be on her property if she doesn't want you here. Please leave voluntarily, or we'll have to remove you. David stared at his mother through the doorway. For a moment, Esther saw something in his eyes. Not love, not concern, rage. This isn't over, he said quietly. I'll fight this. I'll prove you're not competent to make these decisions. Mr. Blackwell, that sounds like a threat, Officer Martinez said sharply. It's not a threat. It's a promise. My mother is clearly not in her right mind. I'm going to petition the court for guardianship. I spoke up from the phone. Mr. Blackwell, that's your right, but I should inform you that we have extensive documentation of your mother's competence, multiple witnesses, medical evaluations, and a very clear explanation of why she made these changes. Any guardianship petition will fail. David looked like he wanted to say more, but the officers were clearly losing patience. He finally turned and walked to his car. After he drove away, the officers lingered for a few minutes to make sure Esther was truly okay. Ma'am, do you feel safe? Officer Martinez asked. Yes. David wouldn't hurt me physically. He just wants my money. If he comes back uninvited, call us again. You have the right to keep him off your property. After the police left, Esther sat down heavily on her couch. She was shaking. I can't believe that just happened, she said into the phone. I was still on speaker. You did the right thing. You held your ground. He said he's going to petition for guardianship. Can he do that? He can try. It won't succeed. You're clearly competent, but it will be stressful and potentially public. What should I do? Nothing right now. Let him make the first move. We'll respond when necessary. Over the next few days, Esther received letters. Angry letters from David and Susan, pleading letters, threatening letters. One letter from Susan particularly stood out. You're destroying your grandchildren's future. That money was supposed to help pay for their college, their weddings, their lives. How can you be so cruel? Esther called me after receiving that letter. They really think they're entitled to my money. Not grateful for potential inheritance. Entitled. That's the problem. Somewhere along the way, they stopped seeing your estate as yours and started seeing it as theirs. They were just waiting for you to die to access it. Susan's letter mentions the grandchildren. Should I leave something to Chloe and Michael? Do you want to? I don't know. They're children. They repeat what their parents say. But maybe when they're adults, they'll understand. We could create a provision that if you die after the grandchildren reach age 25, they each receive a modest inheritance. That way they're adults, independent from their parents' influence, and can appreciate the gift on its own terms. I like that. Let's do that. We amended Esther's trust to include a provision. If she died after Chloe and Michael reached age 25, they would each receive $50,000. The rest would still go to the Madison house. It wasn't much compared to the size of Esther's estate, but it was something. A gesture that she didn't hate her grandchildren, but also didn't reward their parents' behavior. 2 weeks after the police incident, David filed papers in court. Not a guardianship petition as he'd threatened, but something else. A lawsuit, claiming that I had unduly influenced Esther to change her estate plan, and that the new will and trust should be declared invalid. I called Esther immediately. David's suing me. He's claiming I manipulated you. That's ridiculous. You helped me. You didn't manipulate me. I know, but this is going to be a fight. David's going to try to prove you weren't competent when you made these changes. He'll try to paint me as a predatory attorney taking advantage of a vulnerable widow. What do? We defend, vigorously, and we document everything. I hired co-counsel immediately. When an attorney is personally sued for allegedly manipulating a client, it's best practice to have independent representation. My co-counsel was a lawyer named Patricia Torres, who specialized in defending attorneys in ethics complaints and lawsuits. This is a shakedown, Patricia said after reviewing the case. David thought he was getting almost $2 million when his mother died. Now he's getting nothing. He's trying to intimidate her into changing things back. Will it work? Not if Esther holds firm, but lawsuits are stressful. Some elderly clients cave under pressure just to make the fighting stop. Esther's not going to cave, I said. She's angry, and she's motivated. We immediately started building our defense. I compiled detailed notes from every meeting with Esther. We gathered evidence, showing Esther was competent and acting freely. We arranged for Esther to undergo a comprehensive cognitive evaluation by a geriatric psychiatrist. The results showed she was fully competent, with no signs of dementia, depression, or impaired judgment. We deposed Margaret, Esther's friend, who testified that Esther had discussed the overheard conversation with her immediately after it happened. Margaret confirmed that Esther was hurt, but rational, angry, but clear-headed. We also did something unusual. We arranged for Esther to be interviewed on video by a neutral third-party attorney who asked her detailed questions about why she made the changes. In the video, Esther was articulate and precise. She explained the overheard comment, the pattern of David and Susan viewing her as a financial resource, her decision to protect her autonomy. "I'm not angry at David," Esther said in the video. "I'm disappointed. I raised him to be kind and respectful. Somewhere along the way, he learned that my value was in my bank account, not in who I am. That's my failure as a mother, maybe, but it doesn't mean I have to reward that mindset with my estate." It was powerful testimony, and it would be very difficult for David to overcome. The lawsuit dragged on for months. David's attorney tried every angle. They subpoenaed my records. They deposed me for hours. They brought in an expert witness who testified about undue influence in estate planning. But every argument fell flat. The evidence was overwhelming that Esther was competent and acting freely. Finally, 8 months after filing the lawsuit, David's attorney approached Patricia about settlement. "My client is willing to drop the lawsuit if Mrs. Blackwell agrees to leave him at least 20% of her estate," the attorney said. Patricia didn't even have to consult with me. "No. Your client has no grounds for this lawsuit. Mrs. Blackwell made her choices freely. She's not negotiating with someone who's already proven he values her money more than her life." "We'll take this to trial then." "Please do. We have video testimony of Mrs. Blackwell explaining exactly why she disinherited your client. We have evidence of the comment that prompted her decisions. We have psychiatric evaluations proving competence. We have detailed notes from every attorney meeting. You'll lose, and your client will likely be ordered to pay our legal fees." David's attorney went back to his client. A week later, they withdrew the lawsuit. David had lost, but the damage to the family was permanent. After David's lawsuit was dismissed, Esther felt something she hadn't felt in months: peace. "It's over," she said when I called to tell her the news. "He can't touch my assets anymore. He can't claim I'm incompetent. It's really over." "How do you feel?" "Relieved. Sad, but mostly relieved." "Any regrets?" Esther was quiet for a moment. "I regret that my son turned out this way. I regret that I enabled it by always saying yes to his financial requests. But I don't regret protecting myself. That was necessary." In the months following the lawsuit dismissal, Esther started rebuilding her life. But it looked different now. She sold her house, the home she'd lived in for 30 years with Harold, where she'd raised David. It held too many memories, and she wanted a fresh start. She bought a small condo in a senior living community. Not assisted living. She was still completely independent. But a community with social activities, security, and people her own age. "I love it," she told me during one of our occasional check-in calls. "I have friends here. We play cards. We take day trips. No one knows about my legal battles or my estranged son. I'm just Esther, not anyone's mother or inheritance." The one surprising development was Chloe, Esther's 15-year-old granddaughter. About 6 months after the lawsuit ended, Esther received a letter. Not from David or Susan, but from Chloe. The letter was handwritten, clearly from a teenager's hand. "Dear Grandma, I don't know if you'll read this, but I needed to write it. I'm sorry for how Mom and Dad treated you. I heard them talking about the lawsuit. I heard Mom say terrible things about you. I don't understand why they're so angry about money that was yours anyway. I miss you. I know I can't have a relationship with you while I'm still living with them. But when I turn 18, can I reach out again? I love you. Chloe." Esther cried when she read it. She called me immediately. "My granddaughter wrote to me. She apologized. She wants to stay in touch. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. She's only 15. She lives with David and Susan. If I respond, they might punish her or cut off her contact with me entirely. That's a real risk. But you could write back and be clear that you're not trying to come between her and her parents. Just let her know you received her letter and you'll be here when she's ready." Esther did write back. A short, careful letter that expressed love but didn't criticize David and Susan. She told Chloe she understood the situation and would welcome contact when Chloe was older and independent. She sent the letter to Chloe's school, not to the home, so David and Susan wouldn't intercept it. Whether Chloe received it, Esther didn't know, but she'd tried. Meanwhile, Esther found purpose in unexpected ways. She became a volunteer at the Madison House, the women's shelter that would eventually inherit her estate. She helped with fundraising. She mentored women who were rebuilding their lives after domestic violence. "These women understand betrayal," Esther told me. "They understand what it's like when someone you trusted turns out to be someone else entirely. We have that in common." Esther also started speaking publicly about elder financial abuse. She gave talks at senior centers about the importance of protecting your assets and autonomy. "I was lucky," she'd tell audiences. "I heard the comment that woke me up before it was too late." Many elderly parents don't get that warning. They trust their children completely, and they don't realize they're being financially exploited until it's too late. She talked about the warning signs: adult children who pressure parents for money, who insist on being added to bank accounts, who become angry when told no, who seem more interested in inheritance than relationship. If your adult child is more concerned about your will than your wellness, that's a red flag, Esther would say. Her talks were popular. Other elderly people would approach her afterward with their own stories of adult children who seemed entitled to parental assets. One woman told Esther, "My son keeps asking me when I'm going to sell my house and move in with him. He says it's for my safety, but I think he wants the money from the house sale." Esther gave her my card. "Talk to an estate planning attorney. Make sure your assets are protected. It's not paranoia, it's prudence." About 18 months after the initial crisis, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Chen, this is Chloe Blackwell, Esther's granddaughter. My grandmother gave me your number years ago in case I ever needed to reach her. Is she okay?" "She's fine. Is everything okay with you?" "Yes. I'm 17 now. I'm applying to colleges. I wanted to see my grandmother, but I don't have her current address. My parents won't give it to me." "I can contact your grandmother and let her know you're trying to reach her. If she wants to share her information, I'll pass it along. Thank you. And Mr. Chen, thank you for protecting her. My parents said terrible things about you, but I did some research. I read about the lawsuit. I understand what really happened. You helped her when she needed it. I called Esther immediately. She was thrilled and terrified. What if David finds out she's seeing me? What if he punishes her? Chloe is almost 18. She's applying to colleges. She'll be legally an adult soon and can make her own choices. Should I meet with her? That's your decision, but if you want a relationship with your granddaughter, this is your chance. Esther and Chloe met at a coffee shop near Chloe's high school. Esther told me about it afterward. It was wonderful and heartbreaking. She's grown up so much. She looks like David did at that age. But she's different. She's kind. She asked about my life, not about my money. She apologized for her parents. She didn't have to, but she did. Are you going to stay in touch? Yes, we're being careful. She has a cell phone her parents don't monitor. We text sometimes. We meet for coffee every few weeks. When she goes to college next year, it'll be easier. She'll be independent. How does this change your estate plan? I want to increase her inheritance, not dramatically, but more than the $50,000 we set aside. Maybe $100,000. She's proven she's not like her parents. We updated Esther's trust to reflect the increased gift to Chloe. Meanwhile, David and Susan remained completely cut off. They'd made a few more attempts to contact Esther over the months, but she'd blocked their numbers and ignored their letters. Do you ever miss your son? I asked Esther during one of our meetings. I miss who I thought he was, the son I imagined I had. But that person never really existed. The real David is someone who laughed when his wife asked why I was still alive. I can't miss someone who sees me as an inconvenience. That's a healthy way to look at it. It took me a while to get here. I went through grief, anger, guilt. I wondered if I'd failed as a mother, if I'd raised him wrong. But my therapist helped me understand that adults make their own choices. David chose to value money over relationship. That's on him, not me. Esther had started seeing a therapist shortly after the lawsuit began. It had been helpful in processing the betrayal and the family estrangement. Do you think David will try anything else? Esther asked. I doubt it. The lawsuit failed spectacularly. He has no legal standing to challenge your decisions. As long as you're competent, which you clearly are, your estate plan stands. What happens when I die? When you die, your trust will be administered by the professional trustee we appointed. Your assets will go to the Madison House, with the exception of the gifts to your grandchildren if they're over 25. David can contest the will if he wants, but he'll lose. We have too much documentation. Will the Madison House use the money well? I've vetted them thoroughly. They're a well-run organization with strong financial oversight. Your estate will help hundreds of women escape dangerous situations and rebuild their lives. It's a powerful legacy. Esther smiled. Better than leaving it to people who are waiting for me to die. 2 years after the initial crisis, Esther was thriving. She had a community of friends in her condo building. She had meaningful volunteer work. She had a renewed relationship with Chloe, who was now in college, studying social work. I want to work with people like Grandma, Chloe had told Esther. People who've been betrayed or hurt. I want to help them. Esther was proud. She called me occasionally, usually just to chat or to update her trust documents when circumstances changed. She'd become a friend, not just a client. I need to tell you something, she said during one call. I'm grateful for what happened. I know that sounds strange, but that overheard comment, as painful as it was, saved me. How so? Because it woke me up. If I'd never heard Susan's question, I would have kept giving David and Susan money. I would have kept believing I was their beloved mother instead of their retirement plan. I would have died thinking we had a loving family. The truth would have come out after I was gone, and I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. So you're glad you overheard that comment? Yes. It hurt, but it freed me. I took control of my assets, my legacy, and my dignity. I'm not anyone's inheritance. I'm Esther, and I matter. That conversation stayed with me long after we hung up. About 3 years after the initial crisis, I got a call from the Madison House executive director. Mr. Chen, I wanted to thank you for connecting us with Esther Blackwell. She's been an incredible volunteer and advocate.
She's helped us raise over $200,000 in the past 2 years. That's wonderful. There's something else. Esther has asked if we'd be interested in establishing an endowed fund in her name. She wants to create a permanent funding source for our legal advocacy program, helping domestic violence victims navigate divorce and custody proceedings. That sounds perfect for her. She's pledging $500,000 during her lifetime to establish the fund. And of course, the rest of her estate will come to us eventually. But she wants to see the impact while she's alive. I discussed it with Esther at our next meeting. I've been thinking about my legacy, she said. I don't want to wait until I'm dead for my money to do good. I want to see it help people now. You're sure about giving away $500,000 while you're still alive? I have more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Even if I live to be 100, which I probably won't, I'll be fine. Why should that money sit in my account when it could be helping women right now? It's your decision, and it's a generous one. It's not generosity, it's justice. These women are escaping situations where people controlled them, manipulated them, used them. I understand that. I lived a version of it. My money can help them get free. The Esther Blackwell Legal Advocacy Fund was established 6 months later. The first year, it helped 42 women navigate legal proceedings to escape abuse. Esther attended the fund's inaugural event, where several women shared their stories of how the legal support had changed their lives. I wouldn't be alive if I hadn't gotten help leaving, one woman said. The Esther Blackwell Fund paid for my attorney. I got custody of my kids. I have a protective order. I'm safe. Thank you. Esther was crying when she called me after the event. That's what I wanted. That's what my money should do. Help people who actually need it, not fund kitchen remodels for people who already have everything. 5 years after the initial crisis, Esther was 78 years old and still going strong. Her relationship with Chloe had deepened. Chloe visited regularly, and they'd taken several trips together. Chloe had graduated from college and was working at a social services agency. She'd also completely cut off contact with her parents. They don't understand why I have a relationship with Grandma, Chloe told Esther. They think I'm betraying them. But I'm not. I'm just choosing to love someone who actually loved me back. Michael, the younger grandson, was still living with David and Susan and had apparently absorbed their values. He'd sent Esther an email on his 18th birthday asking if she'd reconsider her will. I know we haven't been close, but I'm your grandson. Don't you think I deserve something? Esther had forwarded the email to me. He sounds just like his father. What do you want to do? Nothing. If he'd reached out to me to build a relationship, I'd have welcomed it. But reaching out to ask for inheritance? That proves he learned exactly what his parents taught him. The trust provisions remained unchanged for Michael. If Esther died after he turned 25, he'd receive $50,000. Less than Chloe, but something. As I write this, Esther is 81 years old. She's still healthy, still active, still volunteering at the Madison House. She's expanded her public speaking to include podcasts and articles about elder financial abuse. She's also become something of an advocate for others in similar situations. She's helped several other elderly people navigate estrangements from financially manipulative adult children. People think I'm bitter, Esther told me recently. They think I'm a sad old woman who cut off her family. But I'm not. I'm a woman who chose dignity over exploitation. I'm a woman who took control of her own life. I'm not bitter, I'm free. David and Susan have made no further attempts to contact Esther. According to Chloe, they're struggling financially.
They'd apparently been counting on Esther's inheritance to fund their retirement. They're angry at Grandma for ruining their plans, Chloe said. They don't understand that it was never their money to count on. As for Esther's estate plan, it remains solid and protected. When she dies, her assets will go primarily to the Madison house, with gifts to Chloe and potentially Michael if they're old enough. David will get nothing. And that's exactly as it should be. 7 years after Esther first walked into my office, I was invited to speak at a national estate planning conference about financial abuse of elderly clients. I used Esther's case as the centerpiece of my presentation, with her presentation. I called it "The Question That Changed Everything: When Inheritance Expectations Destroy Families." The conference was in Chicago, attended by about 500 attorneys from across the country. My presentation was scheduled for the final day. I told Esther's story from beginning to end: the overheard comment, the immediate legal transformation, David's lawsuit, the eventual outcome. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then the questions started. An attorney from Florida raised her hand. How do you balance protecting elderly clients from financial abuse versus respecting family relationships? Some would argue you destroyed Esther's family. I didn't destroy anything, I said firmly. David destroyed the family when he laughed at his wife asking why his mother was still alive. When he demanded $50,000 and called her selfish for refusing. When he positioned himself to control every aspect of her life and assets. My job was to help Esther protect herself from that abuse. Another attorney asked, but don't adult children have some reasonable expectation of inheritance, especially when they've been helping care for an elderly parent? Expectation is not entitlement. Yes, many parents leave assets to their children, but those assets belong to the parent until the parent dies. Adult children who start acting like they own their parents' money before the parent is gone are demonstrating exactly why they shouldn't inherit. A woman in the back spoke up. I have a client in almost this exact situation. Her son has power of attorney and is co-signer on her accounts. She's expressed concern that he's using her money inappropriately, but she's afraid to cut him off because he's her only child.
What should I tell her?
Tell her that being someone's only child doesn't give you the right to exploit them. Help her protect her assets immediately. Don't wait until the situation deteriorates further. Act now while she's competent and able to make changes. The questions continued for 45 minutes after my scheduled time. Clearly, this was a situation many attorneys were encountering with clients. After the presentation, I was approached by at least 30 attorneys who wanted to discuss similar cases. They shared stories of elderly clients being financially manipulated by adult children, sometimes with the client's awareness, often without. My client knows her daughter is stealing from her, one attorney said, but she won't press charges because she's my daughter. How do I help someone who won't help themselves? You document everything. You explain the options. You make it clear what rights they have. But ultimately, if a competent adult chooses to allow themselves to be exploited, that's their choice. Our job is to make sure they understand they have other options. The conference organizers asked me to write an article for their journal about the case. The article, titled Financial Infidelity in Parent-Child Relationships: Legal Strategies for Protection, was published 3 months later. The response was overwhelming. I received emails from attorneys across the country who'd read the article and wanted more information. Some were handling similar cases. Others wanted to know how to spot warning signs early. I also received emails from elderly people who'd read the article and recognized themselves in Esther's story. One woman wrote, I'm 76 years old. My son is on all my accounts and has power of attorney. He keeps pressuring me to sell my house and move in with him. After reading your article, I realize he wants the money from the house sale, not to help me.
Thank you for opening my eyes.
Another email. I overheard my daughter-in-law telling her friend that they're just waiting for me to die so they can pay off their mortgage with my life insurance. I thought I was being paranoid. Now I know I need to protect myself. I referred these people to local estate planning attorneys in their areas. But I also started thinking about how to reach more people with this information. With Esther's encouragement and participation, I started a blog about elder financial abuse. Esther contributed guest posts, sharing her story and perspective. One of her posts was particularly powerful. I was a good mother. I loved my son. I supported him throughout his life. But somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me as his mother and started seeing me as his inheritance. The moment I heard him laugh at his wife's cruel question, "Why is she still alive?" I realized I had a choice. I could continue being exploited, or I could protect myself. I chose protection, and I've never regretted it. The blog gained traction. Within 6 months, we had over 50,000 regular readers. Other elderly people shared their stories in the comments. Patterns emerged. Adult children asking elderly parents to add them to bank accounts just in case. Adult children pressuring parents to update wills and make them executors. Adult children becoming angry when parents spent their inheritance on things like vacations or charitable donations. Adult children tracking parents' spending and questioning purchases. It was a widespread problem, and most elderly people felt trapped between protecting themselves and maintaining family relationships. Esther became something of a spokesperson for the issue. She did podcast interviews, appeared on local news segments, and spoke at senior centers. Her message was always the same. Your assets are yours until you die. You don't owe them to anyone. If your adult children make you feel guilty for not giving them money, that's manipulation. Protect yourself. Not everyone appreciated her message. Esther received hate mail from people who thought she was selfish and cruel for disinheriting her son. You only have one child and you're leaving everything to charity? That's disgusting. Your son took care of you and this is how you repay him? I hope you die alone and realize what a mistake you made. Esther showed me these messages during one of our meetings. She didn't seem bothered by them. These people don't know my story. They don't know what David did. They're projecting their own situations onto mine. I don't take it personally. Some of these messages are pretty harsh. I've been called worse. David's attorney called me mentally incompetent, remember? These random strangers don't bother me. But there were also messages of support. Hundreds of them. Thank you for speaking out. I'm in the same situation. Your story gave me the courage to protect myself. My mother was financially exploited by my brother for years. She died penniless because he drained her accounts. I wish she'd had the strength you have. You're an inspiration. Your money should go where you want it to go, not where entitled relatives think it should go. These messages reinforced for Esther that she'd made the right choice. About 8 years after the initial crisis, something unexpected happened. David reached out. Not to Esther directly. She'd blocked his number and email. But through Chloe. "Grandma, Dad asked me to give you a message," Chloe said during one of their regular coffee meetings. "He wants to apologize. He wants to meet with you." Esther was quiet for a long time. "What do you think?" "I don't know. He's my dad. I love him. But I also know how he treated you. I don't trust his motives." "Do you think he's genuine?" Chloe hesitated. "I think he's broke. I think retirement is harder than he expected. And I think he realizes he's not getting your inheritance. So now he wants to repair the relationship. So the apology isn't about me, it's about money." "Probably. But I don't know for sure. Maybe he does regret how things went. Esther asked my opinion. I gave her my honest assessment. If you meet with David, go into it with clear boundaries and low expectations. Don't meet alone. Have Chloe there, or me, or someone you trust. Don't discuss financial matters at all. See if he can have a relationship with you without money being part of the conversation. And if he can't, then you'll know his apology wasn't genuine. Esther thought about it for several days. Finally, she agreed to meet with David. Neutral location, Chloe present. No discussion of financial matters. The meeting was at a restaurant. Chloe told me about it later. David had apparently prepared a speech about how sorry he was, how he'd been stressed about money and had made mistakes, how he missed his mother and wanted to rebuild their relationship. It sounded good, until Esther tested him. David, I appreciate the apology, but I need to know. If my estate plan never changes, if you never inherit $1 from me, can you still have a relationship with me? David hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. Of course, Mom. This isn't about money. Then you won't mind signing a document stating that your contact with me is not contingent on any expectation of inheritance. What? Why would I need to sign something like that? Because I need to know you value me as your mother, not as your inheritance. David got angry. This is ridiculous. I came here to apologize and you're treating me like a criminal. I'm treating you like someone who laughed when his wife asked why I was still alive. Someone who sued me for changing my will. Someone who only reached out after 8 years because he realized he's not getting any money. So yes, if you want a relationship with me, prove it's not about money. David stood up. I'm not signing anything.
I came here in good faith. This is manipulative. I'm manipulative? You sued me for undue influence, David. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You controlled my finances for years. And I'm manipulative for asking you to prove you love me for who I am, not what I have? David left. The meeting was over in less than 20 minutes. Esther wasn't surprised. He couldn't even pretend for one conversation that it wasn't about money. Are you sad? No. I'm confirmed. I made the right choice 8 years ago, and nothing that happened today changes that. Esther and I stayed in touch regularly over the years. She updated her estate plan occasionally as circumstances changed, but the core structure remained the same. Most of her estate to the Madison house. Gifts to Chloe, who'd proven herself to be loving and genuine. A token amount to Michael if he reached age 25. Nothing to David. As I write this, Esther is 84 years old. She's had some health issues, nothing major, just the normal challenges of aging. But she's still sharp, still active, still involved with the Madison House. The Esther Blackwell Legal Advocacy Fund has helped over 300 women in its 9 years of operation. Women who escaped abusive situations, got protective orders, secured custody of their children, rebuilt their lives. That's Esther's legacy. Not an entitled son who viewed her as an inheritance, but hundreds of women who got a second chance at life. Chloe is now a social worker at a domestic violence agency, directly helping people like those her grandmother's fund supports. She visits Esther weekly, and they're extremely close. Grandma saved me, Chloe told me once. She showed me that you don't have to accept toxic family relationships just because they're family. You can set boundaries. You can protect yourself. You can choose who deserves your love and who doesn't. Recently, Esther asked me to help her plan a living funeral. I want to celebrate my life while I'm still alive, she said. I want the people who actually care about me to gather and celebrate, not wait until I'm dead and have some somber event where people pretend to be sad.
We organized a celebration for Esther's 85th birthday. About 60 people attended. Staff and volunteers from the Madison House. Women who'd been helped by the Legal Advocacy Fund. Friends from her condo community. Chloe and her partner. David and Susan were not invited. At the celebration, the Madison House executive director gave a speech about Esther's impact. Esther Blackwell has changed lives, not just with her financial support, though that's been extraordinary, but with her presence, her advocacy, her willingness to share her story. She's helped us reach more women. She's raised awareness about financial abuse. She's inspired people to protect themselves. She's a hero. Esther cried. Happy tears. This is what matters, she told me afterward. Not how much money I have or who gets it when I die, but what I did with my life, the impact I made, the people I helped. You did exactly what you set out to do. I did more than that. When I first came to your office 8 years ago, I just wanted to protect myself from David. I wanted to take back control. But it became so much more. It became a mission, a purpose. That's a beautiful transformation. It's what happens when you choose yourself, when you stop being what other people expect and start being who you actually are. As an estate planning attorney, I've handled thousands of cases over my career. But Esther's case stands out. Not because of the legal complexity, although there were challenges, but because of what it represents. It represents the choice between being exploited or being free. It represents the courage to hear an ugly truth and act on it.
It represents the transformation that happens when you prioritize your own dignity and autonomy over family expectations. And most importantly, it represents the legacy you can build when you take control of your own story. Esther Blackwell heard her daughter-in-law ask, "Why is she still alive?" And instead of accepting that she was just an inheritance waiting to happen, she fought back. She protected her assets. She protected her autonomy. She protected her dignity. And she built a legacy that will help people long after she's gone. That's justice. That's power. That's what estate planning should be. I'm 85 years old as I write this. I've lived a long life. Some of it happy, some of it heartbreaking. All of it mine. When I first heard my daughter-in-law's cruel question, "Why is she still alive?" I felt destroyed. How could my own family see me that way? How could my son laugh at such a thing? But looking back now, that moment saved me. It woke me up to reality. It showed me who my son had become, and it gave me the courage to protect myself. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, please hear me. You are not obligated to be someone's inheritance. Your assets are yours. Your autonomy is yours. Your dignity is yours. If your adult children pressure you for money, that's manipulation, not love. If they insist on being on your accounts or having power of attorney, ask yourself why. If they become angry when you spend your money on yourself, that's entitlement, not concern. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to change your estate plan. You have the right to leave your assets to whoever you choose, children, friends, charity, anyone. Don't let guilt trap you into being exploited. Don't let family obligation destroy your financial security. Protect yourself. Take back control. Live your life for yourself, not for people who are waiting for you to die. I did, and I've never been happier.
Esther Blackwell. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real legal cases about protecting your rights and autonomy. Share this with any elderly person who might need to hear Esther's message. Remember, your assets are yours until you die. No one is entitled to them just because they're family. Protect yourself. You deserve dignity, autonomy, and control over your own life.